let's just take the recent history. Let's take Operation Cast Lead, 2007 to 8, Operation Pillar of Defense, 2012, Operation Protective Edge, 2014, the Great March of Return, beginning March 2018. In the course of each of these, what Israel calls operations, I think the gentleman has disappeared, so I'm not sure if I should continue.
No, I'd like you, Dr. Finkelstein, to continue if that's okay with you.
Okay. In the course of these operations, there have been many human rights reports deploring what Israel did. There have been verbal condemnations in the Human Rights Council by special rapporteurs, by the General Assembly, but accountability, so far as I know, in the case of Operation Cast Lead, in which 350 children were killed, 6,000 homes destroyed, there were 3 Israelis who were held accountable for stealing a credit card. Operation Protective Edge, 550 Palestinian children were killed, 18,000 homes were destroyed. There were 3 Israelis held accountable for stealing $300 or $600. I can't remember right now. That's all the accountability. Has a single Israeli leader been prosecuted? Has a single Israeli soldier been criminally convicted? What that gentleman is saying is complete nonsense. There's no country in the world that can carry on with such impunity as the state of Israel. Israel has imposed on Gaza. Now, it's true. Yemen suffers now from a terrible blockade. And I'm not going to deny, I'm not going to diminish the magnitude of suffering being experienced by the Yemeni people or the Syrian people. However, in the case of Gaza, you have a population which since 1948, because you have to remember, 70% of the people of Gaza are refugees under international law. So we have to go back to when they became refugees in 1948. So we're not talking about an interval of time. We're talking about 70 years now. If you want to go back to the origins of 70% of the people of Gaza, they're children, grandchildren, and probably now great-grandchildren of refugees. So you're talking about 70 years of refugeedom, and then compounded by a medieval blockade that's been imposed since 2006, since January 2006. I don't want to get into the technicalities, but it's incorrect to say it began with a Hamas takeover, what they call the takeover in 2007. It began with the election of Hamas in January 2006, the blockade of Gaza. So you're talking about protracted periods of time. Yemen, it's now several years, it's true, but we're talking about 7 decades for 70% of the people of Gaza who are classified as refugees. We're talking about since 2006, which is already nearly 15 years of an illegal, immoral blockade of Gaza with complete, total impunity. There is zero accountability by Israel. This notion of accountability, 3 people who served time for stealing a credit card, 3 people who served time for stealing some cash, that's accountability. This is not serious, what he's saying. He's so smothered by Israeli propaganda that he dares say that hospitals are not attacked in Gaza. Now, I respect different people have different areas of expertise, and he was very generous in acknowledging his ignorance in this particular area, which is, I think, an admirable thing to do, not to be a windbag. But then he goes ahead and says preposterous statements like Israel doesn't attack hospitals. I mean, there are voluminous human rights reports documenting Israel's targeting of hospitals, Israel's targeting of ambulances, Israel's targeting of medical personnel. For example, during the Great March of Return in 2018. And in the face of this voluminous documentation, he says Israel doesn't attack hospitals. Okay, agreed. Not everybody has to be knowledgeable about everything. But you don't make statements like that. If you're not knowledgeable, then you should simply say, I don't know. But to first be smothered by the propaganda and then to disseminate the propaganda, to act as a propaganda apparatus for Israel, it's really appalling.